You wake up to an email you didn't want to read. Unfortunately, we decided to move forward with another candidate. You stare at the screen. Your chest tightens. Your mind starts racing. After everything I did, after all that effort, across the city, someone is celebrating a promotion. Somewhere else, a business is closing its doors forever. A couple is breaking up. A child is being born. The stock market opens. Traffic moves. The sun rises. The world didn't pause. Not for your disappointment, not for your frustration, not for your fear. And in this exact moment, a thought appears, quiet, uncomfortable, almost offensive. What if the world was never supposed to care about your feelings? We grow up believing effort guarantees recognition, kindness guarantees fairness, pain guarantees understanding. But reality never signed that contract. The world is not cruel. The world is not kind. The world is indifferent. And this realization can feel like a punch to the chest until you understand what the Stoics understood 2,000 years ago. This is not bad news. This is the most liberating truth you will ever hear. Because the moment you stop expecting emotional fairness from the world, you stop giving the world power over your peace. Today, we are going to dismantle one of the most dangerous beliefs modern culture quietly teaches us. The belief that our emotions should be protected by reality. And we will replace it with something far more powerful: emotional independence. The uncomfortable truth society hides. We live in the most emotionally supportive era in human history. We talk openly about feelings. We promote validation. We encourage self-expression. We are told constantly that our emotions matter, and yet, anxiety is rising. Burnout is rising. Depression is rising. Emotional fragility is rising. How is this possible? How can the most emotionally aware generation also be the most emotionally overwhelmed? Because without realizing it, we were taught a quiet expectation, a dangerous one, that the world should adapt to how we feel. We expect work to feel fulfilling. We expect relationships to feel validating. We expect progress to feel motivating. We expect life to feel fair. And when it doesn't, we don't just feel disappointed, we feel wronged. But here is the truth. Stoicism confronts head-on. Reality has no obligation to match your emotional expectations. Opportunities don't arrive when you feel ready. Recognition doesn't arrive when you feel deserving. Understanding doesn't arrive when you feel misunderstood. And the deeper problem isn't that life is unfair. The deeper problem is the silent gap between what we expect life to be and what life actually is. That gap is where frustration grows. That gap is where resentment grows. That gap is where suffering begins. The Stoics didn't try to close this gap by changing the world. They closed it by changing the expectation. Why expecting the world to care makes you weaker? There is a hidden habit most people never notice, a silent trade happening in the background of their lives. It feels natural, reasonable, even fair, but it slowly steals their power. It's called emotional outsourcing. Every time you think, I'll feel better when they apologize. I'll feel confident when they recognize me. I'll feel calm when things finally go my way. You are handing someone else the remote control to your emotional state, and the world rarely gives it back. This is the trap. We believe validation creates strength, but dependence on validation creates fragility, because the moment your peace depends on someone else's behavior, you lose leverage over your own life. Think about how often we postpone our emotional stability. We wait for recognition before feeling worthy. We wait for closure before moving on. We wait for motivation before taking action. We wait for fairness before accepting reality. Life becomes a long hallway of emotional waiting rooms. And the Stoics saw this clearly centuries ago. Epictetus taught that suffering begins the moment we try to control what isn't ours. Not events, not opinions, not outcomes, but our reactions. Here is the brutal but liberating truth. No one is coming to regulate your emotions for you. Not your boss, not your partner, not society, not the universe. And this sounds harsh until you realize what it gives you in return. Because if no one controls your emotional stability, then no one can take it away. The moment you stop expecting emotional rescue is the moment you become emotionally self-sufficient. and emotional self-sufficiency is the foundation of real power. The moment Stoicism clicks. There is a moment when Stoicism stops sounding harsh and starts feeling like relief. Imagine this. You are the most powerful man in the world. You command armies. You rule an empire stretching across continents. And yet, your life is chaos. War at the borders. A devastating plague killing millions. Political betrayal from people you trusted. Constant pressure. Constant uncertainty. Constant responsibility. This was the daily reality of Marcus Aurelius. And in the middle of all this, he wrote something in his private journal that would survive for nearly 2,000 years. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the moment Stoicism clicks. Because Stoicism is not a philosophy created in comfort. It was forged in pressure, uncertainty, and loss. The Stoics didn't preach calm from quiet rooms. They practiced it in chaos. And their breakthrough was simple but life-changing. Most of our suffering does not come from events. It comes from the fight against reality. We argue with what already happened. We resist what we cannot control. We demand that life behave differently than it does. And this invisible resistance drains enormous emotional energy. Stoicism asks a radical question. What if the problem isn't the event, but the argument with the event? The moment you stop fighting reality, something unexpected happens. Your mind becomes quieter. Your reactions become slower. Your decisions become clearer. Not because life improved, but because your resistance disappeared. This is the shift from emotional reaction to emotional control. And once this shift happens, the world begins to feel less threatening, not because it became softer, but because you became stronger. How emotional reactivity silently destroys opportunity. Most people believe emotions only affect how they feel. They don't realize emotions quietly shape how others perceive them, and perception shapes opportunity. In the real world, opportunities rarely go to the most emotional person in the room. They go to the most stable one. The promotion doesn't go to the person who reacts fastest. It goes to the person who stays composed under pressure. The negotiation isn't won by the person who argues louder. It's won by the person who remains calm when tension rises. The relationship doesn't survive because of passion alone. It survives because of emotional steadiness during conflict. Emotional reactivity feels powerful in the moment, but in reality, it makes you predictable. And predictability is vulnerability. When people know what triggers you, they know how to control you. When situations easily shake you, opportunities quietly move towards someone harder to shake. This is the hidden cost no one talks about. Every emotional outburst leaves a silent reputation behind. He's talented but unstable. She's smart but difficult under pressure. They're capable but too reactive. No one says it directly, but decisions start happening without you. The Stoics understood something deeply strategic. Calm is not passive. Calm is power. Because in any high-pressure moment, the calmer person sees more clearly, thinks more slowly, and chooses more wisely. And over time, this creates a powerful asymmetry. While others are reacting, you are deciding. While others are escalating, you are observing. While others are emotional, you are effective. And effectiveness attracts opportunity. The Stoic advantage, becoming hard to shake. There is an invisible dynamic present in every conflict, every negotiation, every tense conversation. Whoever is less emotionally affected holds the advantage. Not the loudest person, not the most aggressive person, the most stable person. Because stability creates psychological asymmetry. Imagine two people in a heated discussion. One becomes defensive, raises their voice, speaks faster. The other slows down, listens, and responds calmly. Without realizing it, everyone in the room senses who is in control. Calm communicates strength. Reactivity communicates vulnerability. This is why emotional stability quietly shapes leadership, influence, and trust. People instinctively feel safer around those who are hard to shake. They trust their judgment more. They rely on them in high-pressure moments. They see them as anchors in chaos. And here is the paradox. The Stoic doesn't win by overpowering others. The Stoic wins by being unmovable. When someone tries to provoke you and fails, they lose leverage. When circumstances try to overwhelm you and fail, they lose power. When uncertainty tries to intimidate you and fails, it loses fear. Each moment you remain steady rewrites how the world interacts with you. Over time, something subtle begins to happen. You stop feeling like life is happening to you and start feeling like you are moving through life with intention. This is the Stoic advantage. Not controlling the world, but becoming someone the world cannot easily destabilize. The hidden freedom of accepting indifference. At first, the idea that the world doesn't care about your feelings feels heavy. But then something unexpected happens. It becomes light, because the moment you truly accept that the world is indifferent, a strange freedom appears. Rejection loses its sting. Criticism loses its poison. Embarrassment loses its weight. Why? Because you stop interpreting every negative moment as a personal injustice. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "Now that this has happened, what can I do with it?" This shift changes everything. If the world doesn't owe you fairness, then failure is not humiliation, it's feedback. If the world doesn't owe you validation, then criticism is not an attack, it's information. If the world doesn't owe you comfort, then difficulty is not punishment, it's training. Suddenly life stops feeling like a courtroom and starts feeling like a training ground. The Stoics believed that every event has two handles, one that makes it heavy and one that makes it useful. Most people grab the heavy handle. This shouldn't have happened. This isn't fair. This ruined everything. The Stoic reaches for the other handle. How can this strengthen me? What does this teach me? How can I use this? And this is where the emotional liberation happens. Because when nothing owes you comfort, everything becomes usable. Every setback becomes material. Every obstacle becomes training. Every difficult moment becomes fuel. The world's indifference stops feeling cruel. It starts feeling empowering. Practical Stoic mental models. Now we move from philosophy to practice. Because Stoicism is not meant to sound inspiring, it is meant to work in real life, in real moments, when emotions rise fast and logic tries to disappear. Here are 3 Stoic mental models you can start using today. 1. The event, story, separation. This is one of the most powerful mental shifts you can learn. Every difficult moment is made of 2 parts, the event and the story you tell yourself about the event. The event, you didn't get the job. The story, I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. My future is ruined. The event is real, the story is optional. Most suffering is not created by the event, but by the catastrophic narrative we attach to it. Stoics trained themselves to pause and ask, what actually happened, and what am I adding? This question alone can dissolve enormous emotional weight. 2. The 10-minute rule. Strong emotions create urgency. They demand immediate reaction. Send the message now, reply now, argue now, decide now. But urgency is often emotion pretending to be importance. The Stoic response is simple. Delay the reaction. Give yourself 10 minutes before responding to any emotionally charged situation. In those 10 minutes, your breathing slows, your thinking returns, your perspective widens. Most reactions you regret would never happen if you gave yourself 10 minutes. Calm is often just delayed reaction. 3. The inner citadel visualization. The Stoics imagined the mind as a fortress. Outside the walls, opinions, criticism, chaos, outcomes, other people. Inside the walls, judgment, values, choices, character. Every day, without noticing, we open the gates and let the outside world storm the fortress. The Stoic practice is to rebuild the walls. Before reacting, ask, is this inside my walls or outside them? If it's outside, it doesn't get to control your state. This is how emotional independence becomes daily practice. Final reframe. The world's indifference is a gift by now. The idea that once felt harsh begins to feel different. The world doesn't care about your feelings, and strangely, this is where your strength begins. Because if the world is not responsible for your emotional state, then your peace is no longer fragile. It no longer depends on outcomes. It no longer depends on recognition. It no longer depends on fairness. It depends on you. And this changes how you walk through life. You stop fearing rejection, because rejection is no longer a verdict on your worth. You stop fearing failure, because failure is no longer a verdict on your future. You stop fearing criticism, because criticism is no longer a verdict on your value. Everything becomes information. Everything becomes material. Everything becomes training. The Stoics didn't see life as something that should be easy. They saw life as something that could make you strong. And strength creates a quiet confidence the world cannot easily shake. When the world doesn't owe you comfort, you stop negotiating with reality. You stop resisting what already happened. You stop waiting for emotional permission to move forward. You move anyway, you act anyway, you build anyway, you grow anyway. The world's indifference stops being a threat. It becomes permission to become resilient, disciplined, and self-directed. Cinematic. Imagine waking up tomorrow with a quiet realization. Nothing outside of you has the authority to decide your peace. Not success, not failure, not praise, not criticism, not the unpredictable rhythm of life. For most people, this idea feels intimidating. For the Stoic, it feels freeing. Because when the world stops being responsible for your emotions, you stop living at the mercy of circumstances. You stop waiting to feel ready. You stop waiting to feel validated. You stop waiting to feel certain. You begin acting from something deeper, choice. And slowly, almost silently, life starts to feel different. Problems still appear. Challenges still arrive. Uncertainty still exists. But the emotional turbulence begins to fade. Where panic once lived, there is pause. Where frustration once lived, there is perspective. Where fear once lived, there is quiet confidence. This is the transformation Stoicism offers. Not a life without difficulty, but a life where difficulty no longer controls you. The world doesn't care about your feelings, and that is why your feelings no longer have to control your destiny. And once you understand this, you don't feel smaller. You feel free.